Hold on. I'm only doing this if everyone's doing it.
Everyone's
I'll do it.
It's not that
Okay.
hard.
Happy Friday, everyone. We are back.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Faster, stronger, tanner.
Better.
From vacation.
Yes. Well,
One more time. Digital love.
Digital. Yep. Yep.
So
we have a couple demos lined up for today. We also will quickly talk about what's coming up and how you can see what's coming up with our upcoming release for PWA Studio 4.0. I believe that's going to be the version. Yep. I guess we'll see. So we'll talk about that quickly. We'll open up for any questions or thoughts, and then we'll get things wrapped up. So I think today we're going to start off with Andy, who has a demo for editing items.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Gotta do that.
Oh my god. Are we really doing this?
You are.
So we've decided as a team that from now on for demos we'll leave.
No, I think we should just do this at one demo when we're all in the office and we're doing it. We're gonna do more than just this sauce. We're gonna have the bomb.
Fair enough.
Next time I have a demo, I'll do the bomb.
Fair enough.
Just because you guys won't shut up about it.
Okay, so I wanted to demo a couple PRs I have up this week around editing items. So right now, this is the current released version of any of PWA.com. So you can see I have an item in my cart here. Pay attention to the options that are on this item, so rain and small. And if I go into this edit item screen, you can see that none of these are selected, and I have to go in and actually oh, hey, I want a different color. And then I have to pick my size again. And I don't have to change the quantity. That'll
It's like if you forgot what you had picked.
Yeah, it would be. It's a very odd user experience to have to go in and reselect
it should
everything.
remember, right?
Yeah.
If you've picked it, the configuration should show that.
Yeah, and the issue initially was like, hey, I just want to change one, let's say the color or the size or something. I don't want to have to go through and pick everything again. So that's the current state of things. This is running the new code here. So in this cart, I have medium peach. Athena tank dress.
Would you mind showing this in a mobile view, Andy, rather than this desktop?
Sure.
What is the extra space behind me? Something?
Always.
You're gonna get a lot of
The idea that we are like troubleshooting this first and foremost for an outmoded ancient platform like the personal computer.
So peach, medium, Athena tank dress. If I go in here, now peach and medium are pre-selected, and I can just change.
How do we know it's peach though? How do we know it's peach?
That's an excellent question. So yeah, we're randomizing colors right now. But yeah, if in mobile view, it's hard because you have to click these before the tooltip show up.
Also, but this is a ticket coming down that's adding the swatch.
Yeah,
doing
There
that.
is
We're
something
adding-
about the swatch I didn't actually. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, we changed
There
the
won't be a tooltip
tooltip
anymore.
treatment to just have the, like when
Text.
no color is selected, it'll just say color not selected.
Oh,
and
that's
then
right.
It's just the text under the swatch.
So that's right. That change is not in here yet, but yeah, that'll be easy.
If the
And so
option isn't available?
say that again.
If the option isn't available
It's always crossed out if it's not available. Like
anymore, like you added something, but then it went out of stock, like color or pink.
Oh, you mean the thing
Oh,
you
I
added
see.
is out of stock?
Yeah. Once you started it in.
How are we getting this?
I'm
Is
not
this
sure
data?
if
Is
that's
this from the
possible.
cache or is this refetched every time you open the cart?
Refetched. The product list is refetched
So
every time
you
you open
should
the cart.
not
In
need
case
to
you
go to
added
the
something on
editing
another
screen to
tab
know
or
that it's
another
out of
device.
stock. If it's out of stock, it should
should
tell
have
you
shown
on the
already.
product card.
Okay.
The problem is that there's 3 out of stock scenarios for Magento, which we are not addressing, which Luma does not address in the UI today. And we are not addressing in Venia yet. There is an open issue for this, and there's questions that I've asked, but I think it's on hold for now. But if we're going to do inventory status, we need to address all of those 3 because that's all of those are possible in the Magento backend.
Okay.
Limited availability, out of stock but able to reorder, out of stock, not able to reorder.
So yeah, bigger picture here. So that's just the Venia concern about the edit item page. We're bigger picture, the Peregrine list component takes a set of like initial values that you want to have pre-selected when you get there. And it respects like the list component can be a radio list or a checkbox or whatever. So there can be multiple ones selected. These are radio, the selection mode or whatever is radio. So you can only have one thing selected at a time. But it works with the checkbox selection mode as well. So we use lists a handful of different places, not just here in the edit cart screen. So if you're using list, and now you can pass in an initial selection and it'll have those things pre-selected when you open it up. That's it.
Fashion, color, and fashion
It's awesome.
labels what we get from GraphQL.
Yeah. Yes. Yes,
Do
it
we change
is.
those? Possible to change?
I think so. Probably in the admin you could change that.
All right. Do we have any other questions from? Applause.
Thank you.
Hold for applause.
Victory
Hold
shot.
for hot sauce. Any other questions for Andy?
Cheers.
So next up we have Samia, who's going to do a demo for some of the UX and design work that has gone into the wish list component. I think I'll defer to you for more background there on Kimla and everything else.
So this summer we had an internship program and we had a couple of UX interns. One of them, Kamala, she worked on the wish list feature with me. We did a full kind of feature design process where we started with documenting what's currently out there in Luma, and then we looked at a bunch of competitors, Target, H&M, I think a couple of single brand retailers, and then she went through wireframing and prototyping and testing this with people. She actually won a prize for this project at the Adobe Intern Summit as the best one for all of the Experience Cloud, Experience Design Organization. So this is actually her work that I'll be showing you. She didn't have a chance to demo before her internship came to an end, sadly. But she's done great work. There's still some tweaks we need to make to this. We didn't get to them because her last day came up too quickly. But let's have a look at what she's done. So is it just share my whole screen, share in the call, or what happens? Okay, so she's based her design off of what we have in Venia currently. So this is kind of the home page unchanged. So if you click on a category, you can see here that there's a wish list or favorites. So the distinction we're making here is favorites are typically unauthenticated, and wish list typically needs authentication and an account to save, whereas favorites are in the session. So what she's worked on is technically favorites. So in the product listing, you have a quick kind of icon shortcut. One thing that we did consider is, according to the Mobile Optimization Initiative, having a prominent wish list or favorites button can negatively impact conversion, but it depends on the demographic. Apparently, it's pretty typical for sort of the millennial demographic to go in and quickly shortlist items and then use the list as a consideration space, whereas older demographics tend to just do that in the cart, like add it to cart and then curate, remove, or don't want to buy this right now, type of psychology. But for the purpose of this feature, we're just going with allowing them to favorite something from the category page. So if you do click it, you see that it adds a counter to the top, and it now has filled in, much like the cart icon does when it has items in it. I unclick this, it removes it. We stayed away from adding a heavy notification because it's not a critical action, like adding to cart or checking out, or removing something from your cart. So then if you went into a product detail page, there's also the ability to add to favorites from here. So if you add it here, if you click that icon, it would add it to favorites. Now this is something new that we tried, where the favorites are a subset of the cart space, and search would similarly be a subset of the main navigation. So you can see here that there's a little promo. This didn't test very well. I mean, people thought it was a bit overwhelming, so we may remove this going forward. But it's sort of a merchant-facing functionality that says if you sign up, you can save this list to your account and also get updates on sales or if these items go on are marked down for sale. So this is a dismissible promo. You can see that. It also gives you the ability to add to cart from here. So if I click on this, there's sort of an inline editor. The size and affordances here needed to be tested a little bit for accessibility because they're quite small. But Spanx does something similar where they allow in-cart editing rather than changing your view to an edit view like we currently have in Benya. There's merits to this and there's merits to that. It's just a matter of what we prefer, but this is something we tried for this one. So then if I choose the size, I think the one tweak that I'd like to make here is that they shouldn't have to click add to cart again. They came in saying they wanted to add to cart. So the minute that they've chosen their configuration parameters, it should just add it. But, people may want to change their mind. They might want to change size. And so that's why we have maybe this should say confirm add to cart rather than add to cart again, just to make sure that it's not a redundant action. Of course, you can close out of it if you want to, close out of this edit mode. If you add to cart, it gives you a little notification that says this has been added to cart. And then if you go over here, it shows you that this item has been added to cart. So if you went into edit item, you would be able to move this back into the favorites list. And we made that a little bit harder because you don't want them to, once it's in the cart, you want them to just buy. You don't want them to go out of this conversion path, but that's the feature design as we have it today. Questions, comments, feedback?
So when you actually added in the favorites,
yeah,
it was removed from favorites, but it still says number 2. Is it still in favorites or?
That is an error. It should say 1.
Okay, so it's not in favorites.
So it depends. Some retailers do not remove it from favorites just because you've added it to your cart. Okay. Some retailers do.
Favorites is different from wish list. I guess Amazon removes it from wish list if you add it to cart.
I think it depends on the action because I've seen it instead of adding to cart from favorite, I've seen it where it says move to cart. So you're technically just moving the item from favorite to cart. But in that way, it acts more as a wish list because now it's not a wish item anymore. So it depends on how you count it, if it's a favorite or a wish list item.
Yeah, so there's that nuance of unauthenticated versus authenticated list. Like when you're signed in, it's a wish list because it's actually that information is being saved. But technically, the favorites would only be available for that session and whatever session means, right? I mean, it depends on how we define that and if there's a timeout and if there's a clearing of any.
But then there was an option to actually save it when you sign in. Then what does that mean?
So that if you don't have an account and you click on save, it'll prompt you to create an account.
But in that case, you can save it for.
Yeah, there's a wish list. Yeah, so if you look on Luma, I can show you on Luma. So if I sign in. Shouldn't say sign in again, that's a glitch, but basically you have my wish list. So right now there are no items, so if we went into one of these, right, and you click this icon, so it's been added to your wish list. Yeah. I don't know why it brought me to my wish list. It shouldn't have done that. I mean, Luma has problems, but all I'm trying to say is that once you're signed in, you are able to add it. Now, if I sign out, and then I go Yeah. It prompts me to create an account or sign in.
Yeah, that's because it has no way to retain it.
Correct. But if you look at H&M, actually I'm already on it.
Yeah, I think H&M, they save it locally in local storage, so you keep it in your session, and then if you're signed in, then it gets moved to your account.
Yeah. I guess that's the same with Macy's as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I do that,
Yeah.
it actually does. There is a favorites list that I can go to even without an account.
Yeah.
Right. So it depends on what the retailer, I think it depends on the shopper demographic of the retailer. Typically, if they, at least what I've observed is if they cater to a younger audience of shoppers, they tend to allow a local storage favorites list. But if it's an older website or if it's for an older demographic, they seem to always want that account creation.
Yeah.
That's kind of frictional. Like you don't want to have to create an account if you're not going to, keep.
You're talking about demographic. Have you seen any difference between depending on the device that they're using? Because I'm guessing that a mobile device user will use favorite more because they have that behavior of liking things.
I haven't come across a website where I'm able to favorite without an account on mobile, but I'm not able to do it on desktop. Usually it's not either or. But that you might have a point. I mean, I can continue to do some research on this, but I haven't seen anything like that so far.
So have you experienced any site where you can build a linkable favorites list? Like where you end up with a URL in the manner of like a shareable Amazon wish list that you could share the list of favorites that you've assembled or curated with somebody.
Without authentication, you mean?
Without authentication.
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, that would be super rare, but with authentication?
I mean, Amazon's a good example of that, right? Target, I think, allows that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if it could be done without authentication, do you think that there is some implicit pressure on the market to provide that, to like an extremely low friction ability to link to these lists? Is that really what we're looking for, or the favorites list? Do you figure that the favorites lists are entirely for internal consumption?
I think that a temporary favorites list while somebody is shopping, likely for themselves or someone else, I don't know if that needs to be shareable. There's not enough data out there, or I haven't consumed any research that says that there's a compelling reason to allow that.
Okay.
I think it's more, you see things that it's much like walking through the racks of a store and just picking things off the rack and throwing it in your bag and then going and trying them on. So trying them on to me is like the shopping cart. That's when you're curating and saying, do I absolutely want this or do I not want it? So I think it's just a short listing type of mechanism, and I don't know that it needs to be super robust. I mean, if we find data that kind of indicates that, then we can revisit this.
Right. The social share is not crucial to that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think on an item basis, probably, I mean, share is still allowed, right? You can do that from the PDP.
Oh, yeah. It's just that if you're doing a local storage-based favorite solution, then it's sort of by definition not linkable. One way that we could get around it is find a way that you could statelessly construct an entire list from a URL, just with like a list of SKUs and variants. But if we're not going to do that, then it's totally fine to go with local storage. It's just a little bit less work. But if we went with the local storage solution, invested a lot of time and energy into that, and then later the requirement came down the pike that those would be linkable, then we'd be in a tough situation.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I would propose something that I wasn't sure was actually had business and shopper value. Like, I mean, if I did find, that these lists need to be linkable, I mean, I would certainly talk to the team and maybe we would do it as a later release or something like that. Like, there would never be that kind of pressure on something like wish list. Checkout and cart are another story because those are high conversion impact.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you feel like fairly safe with that assumption, then I'm totally fine with internal solution or something that's stored in the app itself.
Cool.
I just created a wish list as a guest in Macy's. I sent you that link.
Okay.
And when I tried it in an incognito mode, it was really not local.
Macy's?
Like probably creating a temp location probably for 24 hours or something. Mm-hmm. And now let's see if I add something new after you open it, will it reflect that change? So that means it's not local storage.
We can play.
Yeah, let's definitely play around with it afterwards. I'd say like what we've shown with wish list is still early. I think in the design phase, we know that this is a backlog item for us, so we'll make sure that all of this is present in the ticket. If you're on the call, you're a community member that's interested in wish lists or favorites in this functionality and either contributing to it or helping us with some of these design questions, feel free to engage with us on the ticket. I think in the backlog, it's actually issue 1154. And if you comb through a backlog, it's there anyway. It's one of the new Peregrine wishlist components that we want to create. So, any other questions for Samya? Okay, great. Quickly, I think before we talk about upcoming release, I'll defer to James or Jimmy on the line. If you guys have any updates that you want to share on progress in terms of Peregrine, Upward, scaffolding.
No, sir. For me, I think I'll have a lot more to talk about next week. Right now, no, because we're still kind of getting through some stuff. We are looking forward to issuing an alpha release somewhat soon, so we're all kind of heads down on that, which is why I don't have a lot to show.
On the Peregrine front, we merged the left drawer stuff that we demoed last week, so that's in develop now. And then we're continuing to work on taking the concepts that we were looking at with the left drawer as far as exposing Redux via context and lifting that up. Stephen and I are continuing to spike on that. So there's a spike PR that you can follow if you're curious, but we haven't decided on exactly what strategy we're going to go with. So look for progress on that in the next week or two, I think.
Okay. And Andy just pointed out that I gave the wrong issue number. It's not 1154, it's 1134. There you go. Boom. Okay, so we have a release coming up that will be sometime in the next shortly. There you go. Don't throw it. Hey, bit nebulous enough around the timeline, I guess.
Sometime in the next shortly.
That's quoted.
At least before Half-Life 3 comes out.
And there are a large number of PRs that we've merged since going back, I think, since June. So it's going to be a pretty, I think, hefty release for us. So you can go into the project, right, and look at. I guess we can share this query, the link to this query out to the community.
And we'll cut a alpha branch for testing that people can check out and probably install, I think, if we publish alpha. So.
Okay. And then, of course, we'll have release notes as well. So this is just, if you're curious about what's in the release, we can make sure that we share this query so you can look at all the PRs that have been submitted since the last time we released. So this is upcoming. We'll make sure that we're pushing out as much information as possible, make sure we give as much headway on the upcoming release. But if you have any questions, feel free to engage with us in the community Slack channel. We can answer any questions about what's in, what's out, impact of anything in the release. Anything else release-wise? Okay, cool. So we are 15 minutes early, and we'll just go ahead and wrap things up. Onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Like, comment, and
Right here.
subscribe.
Right there. This button.
Right
This
here.
button.
Click the bell
This
icon
button
for
over
updates.
Smash that subscribe.
Every Friday.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.